What do you get when you combine 3D printing, LEDs, and a little creativity? This Porsche clock light box. Hey everyone, I'm Sparky Makes, and welcome to my channel, where I love creating unique DIY projects using 3D printing and electronics. In this video, I'll show you how I designed and built this Porsche logo clock light box from scratch. It's got LEDs, a built-in fan to keep things cool, and even a functional clock built right into the design. Every good build starts with a plan, which is why I began this project by totally winging it. For some reason I decided to start with the logo face. I found this awesome Porsche logo on MakerWorld created by Angry Mammoth. Now at this point, I should have added a hole in the center for the clock mechanism I plan to install later, but did I? Nope. Guess I'll deal with that headache later. Instead, I focused on reducing the Z depth of the logo to control how diffuse the light would be behind it. Since I was printing at 0.2mm layer heights, I figured that sizing the Z depth in 0.2mm increments would let me control exactly how many layers the print would have. Luckily, the original file from Angry Mammoth already had some key settings dialed in, like 100% infill, which saved me a lot of time. So with the logo ready, it was time to move on to the next step. Next, I designed a base to house the LEDs and a small computer fan. I assumed the fan would be crucial to keep the LEDs from overheating, especially since they'd be running for long periods housed inside of PLA, a plastic known to be susceptible to heat. Turns out it was a bit overkill, but hey, I'm still happy with how it turned out. Here you can see me shaping the base. I started by hollowing out and adding a slot for the clock components using measurements I took with my calipers. Then I cut a hole through the center of the clock mechanism. The bulk of the modeling work came next, where I attempted to use a Boolean operation to carve out the fan shape I wanted from the original design. If you've ever worked with Boolean in 3D modeling, you know it can be a bit hit or miss, but after some trial and error, I got it just right. Big disclaimer here. I should have modeled this in CAD software, like Fusion 360. Instead, I used Blender because I've used it a lot, but let me tell you, avoiding non-manifold edges was a nightmare. If you don't know what that means, count yourself lucky. I didn't know what non-manifold edges meant until this project, and I wish I never had. A non-manifold edge in 3D modeling is when an edge is shared by more than two faces, which can cause all sorts of problems, basically making it non-watertight. Blender isn't really made for this kind of workflow out of the box, whereas CAD software is literally built for manufacturing. Lesson learned. I'll be diving into Fusion 360 soon, so stay tuned to watch me stumble through that process too. Here's everything I used for this project. My Bambu Lab P1S 3D printer, a 3MF file of the Porsche logo from Angry Mammoth, a 12-volt LED strip, a recycled 12-volt power supply from my father's house, a small ATI computer fan I rescued from an old Radeon graphics card, and the clock mechanism that came with my printer, the clock components kit. Let's dive into the build. Next, I printed the base that will hold the LEDs and fan. Then I spent some time testing the LED strip with various resistors to see if a few of my hypotheses were correct. For starters, I wanted to see if the old rescued 12-volt power supply would work right out of the box at all. Looking at the LED strip, I wasn't exactly sure even where to place the negative lead to test this. Turns out, whichever color you connect the negative lead to is the one that lights up. It seemed obvious at this point that I could bridge all the colors to make white, but I figured it might be a little too hot at full power, so I decided to use resistors in between. I settled on 33 ohm resistors for each color since they were small, but not too small, and honestly, I had them lying around. If you're new to soldering, don't worry, it's easier than it looks. Just make sure to double check your connection before powering everything on, and watch out for short circuits. I didn't get footage of this part, but I cut the power cord as well to feed it through the device and added an on-off switch for the LEDs. Finally, I installed the fan. Theoretically, the fan will help dissipate heat and keep the LEDs running smoothly. After soldering a 100 ohm resistor to the negative lead, I wired it to the same power source as the LEDs. I used such a large resistor for the fan because it's a 5-volt fan, and it was running way too fast and way too noisy at full power. Now for the clock. This mechanism came with my Bambu Lab P1S, and it's perfect for this project. This here is the main component. I drilled a hole in the center of the Porsche logo and mounted the clock mechanism. Then I attached the clock hands and made sure everything was aligned properly. And just like that, we've got a working clock built right into the design. Well, I think I failed as much as I learned in that project. No projects without its challenges, but I certainly had a lot. Mostly due to poor planning, like not putting that hole for the clock face right away, but also not using the right tools, like using Blender instead of Fusion 360. Blender just isn't cut out for that sort of stuff. In the future, I'm going to learn Fusion 360, so if you want to come along for that adventure, please stay tuned and subscribe below. Thanks, and have a great day.